He was a graphic designer for web applications and websites. He's very good at his work. I don't know, we've been dating for like a year, and I was sitting at work and like my phone rang, and it was this guy Matt who works with us, and he wanted to know if Aaron had ever had a seizure, and he wanted to know what hospital to take Aaron to. I got to the hospital before him, and we just sat in the emergency room, and they gave him an MRI, and I went home when they said he had to spend the night and got like toothbrushes and pajamas and clothes, and by the time I got back, the doctor had already come in and told Aaron that he had a brain tumor and that he would need to have, surgery in the next couple days to get it out. And so the only word out of like just a blur on the entire page that came out that I could actually read was glioblastoma, which I knew was just like synonymous with bad. The night that he had a seizure, we were lying in his hospital bed, and we were just like, we should get married as soon as you get out of here. So we did. And we'd also told Dr. Truesheim and his whole office, we don't want to know like how long Aaron had to live. Like, let it surprise us. And I think that is why he lived for 3 years.
Well, my brother and I are the third generation owners and managers of our family's community bank here in Decorah, Iowa.
A couple months leading up to his diagnosis, he would have these little episodes where he would have a funny taste in his mouth. And I'm a healthcare provider. I did not recognize that as being a mini seizure. And then night in early December, I woke up to this big thud, and he was unresponsive on the floor. He wasn't actively seizing at that time, but then proceeded to have a seizure. And he went to the ER that evening and then had the MRI the next day. That showed the big guy that we nicknamed the evil baseball.
10 days after that night
Right.
was resection surgery.
Surgically, he was able to get 95% of the tumor, so that was very exciting. After the first surgery, he ended up with a brain abscess and subsequently had his second surgery to clear the infection in the brain and remove the bone flap. And then the third surgery, they put a prosthetic plate back in.
Stainless steel. My nephew Arthur, at age 2, was diagnosed with a brain tumor.
His symptoms were that he stopped gaining weight and he started to be a little wobbly, and then they said, oh, you should bring him in for an MRI, and then 45 minutes into it, he just said they found a tumor.
Then we were at the hospital for another
month. And after the surgery, he came back to show us the scans, and it looked like they had gotten all of it, and we were elated. We were like, this is amazing, this is the best. And then his first MRI, the tumor had grown back to
almost the same size that it was before the surgery. Yeah.
Then he started chemo.
Well, he still has remaining tumor also, but it's steady.
Right.
It's not getting any bigger.
Emily was diagnosed when she was in kindergarten. Before that, never a frown on her face, always a smile.
Over about a 2-week period, she just had a few episodes where she got sick, but then bounced right back. She had a couple really bad headaches where she'd just hold her head, and but then they'd go away. So we didn't think a whole lot of it. But then half of her smile seemed kind of droopy. So I took her into her pediatrician. She said, just to be safe, we'll have you do an MRI just to make sure everything's good. And that's when they found the tumor.
Within 3 or 4 days of diagnosis, they did a biopsy surgery and found out that it was glioblastoma.
Because of the size and location, they were not able to resect it at all.
And on January 5th of 2014, she physically left the world in a very peaceful way. Her memory hasn't left and never will.
You got to value every day you have because things can change in a hurry. Cognitive challenges are what I'm facing right now.
We live a lot with Post-it notes and text messages.
He was really lucky to work for a place that had a lot of compassion. This can take everything from you, and eventually it does, but it does it slowly and it's inhumane. So being able to like go to work and be treated like a person was really, really important.
All you want is for him to be normal.
Right.
And then
And there is no normal because you don't know what is normal and what is the disease or the treatment.
You know, you get up in the morning, everybody starts coming out to have breakfast, and one's short. It turns everything upside down, and it changes your world. And we had a lot of support from other people in the community, our family, a great community through our church and school.
The village, I guess we refer to it, lots of support, lots of cards, lots of prayer pebbles being sent.
For everything that Emily had to encounter in her journey, the clinic would give her these beads that just shows her journey, everything she's been through.
It tends to get you in the heart when you see these kids with miles and miles of beads, because that's a tough time in that family's life.
I gained this sense of myself being a fighter, a survivor, and
It's not normal.
he's not
So
normal.
much better.
He's an extraordinary child. And then when Joe got sick, Arthur would just sit next to Joe, and then the first time that Joe took a walk, Arthur went up and like held his hand and just they walked together.
Up until, the end, she just go. She still did all the things she loved to do, and she was just so strong. And I think it was her attitude.
That's the way a lot of us should be living our lives. We should all take that cue from Emily. She made other people happy.
We'd never fight, and we were just like best friends.
Emily would come play cards with Alex, and Alex would play, I don't know if you ever played princesses with Emily, but
I didn't want to do that kind of stuff, but we were always having fun. I just always like to keep her in mind, pray for her every night.
We still keep her with us and know that she is with us, not physically, but spiritually, she's definitely here.
I hope that I raise a child who's as happy and positive as his father was. I know that Aaron and my dad and that everybody I've ever loved does stay with you. But I don't want to forget any of this, and I don't want to close my eyes for the hard things. I want to be there and be present, because they're just as worth looking at as the easy things, the positive things.
We're pretty sure that his chart at Mayo is flagged with the big red flag that says crazy healthcare provider wife.
And like Aaron never smoked a cigarette, never like did any drugs. And he was like, yeah, I just like went straight to the hard stuff. I just did chemo and radiation, like stuff that'll really mess you up. He used to call himself Chemo Sabi. He used to call his drugs Chemo Grigio, which is like some ice cream, coffee and cream. God, he had a lot of them. He had a lot of good chemo jokes.
what would you say? I was an example of sort of perfect health, right?
Yes, definitely.
Perfection in every way, really. But
He gained his weight back when he went to Israel. He gained like 10 pounds. He was still doing chemo. It was a break, and he like.
Grandma wanted to feed him for the whole year that you didn't see him.
The monkey, when the patient, in this case Emily, had to miss school, the teacher would put the monkey at her desk in her chair.
This is Emily too, and she was kind of a bit of a troublemaker too.
The monkey allegedly threw banana peels around the room.
The monkey snuck into the copy room and made copies of his hands and face. Yeah, it was kind of the troublemaker.
When I always thought about like, oh, you're raising money for research and people are doing things like running marathons or like going to parties, I was always like, you're an idiot. Like, that's not gonna help. But now I am that idiot because brain tumors like kind of get the short end of the stick.
Surgery is so traumatic on the brain. It changes so many things about a person. And finding ways to non-invasively deal with brain tumors, finding out why they happen, because there's so little research about why they happen.
As shocking as it was to receive the diagnosis, it was even more shocking to be sitting there talking to the neurosurgeon and have him say, a few years ago this tumor would have been considered inoperable, but he could do it. So it's impressive, and it's changing so fast, and I think it's really exciting, hopeful stuff.
And I think for both of us, the hope is to keep the spirit of Emily's giving alive. There's cures out there just waiting to be found. There's research that needs to be funded. And I want you to consider making a donation, because we need to get that research pushed through. We need these treatments out there.
My hope is that the doctors are comfortable enough with this thing that it's gone back to sleep, so to speak. Live to be an old guy with grandchildren. That's my plans.